April was a huge month for music. Just endless amounts of music to discover. I attended 3 big concerts in 13 days. We need to catch up. Go! Welcome back to Death Metal Pug. I'm Repugnant. I want to be a rock star when I grow up. The purpose of this is to have fun and talk about music. If for some reason we can help out your band, project, or business, please reach out to us at deathmetalpug@gmail.com. I'd like to thank Big Will for being on last week's episode. You guys are assholes. I think I've really spent most of my time since the last video listening to bands I was going to go see live. I'll go through those shows after we talk about the new releases and everything. But I've jammed a lot of new stuff in April because this might be the best month of releases until the fall, like September, October. We'll see every single band ever released an album in April. Before the current, what are we thinking about or what's on deck for next time? I would definitely say Frozen Soul and Yoth Ira. Yoth Ira. Those are going to come out on May 8th. And then also, of course, Periphery on May 15th. I have not received the Archspire independent label campaign items yet. An email we received on April 30th noted they would be shipped the week of May 4th. Not going to lie, it feels a little anticlimactic since the album's been out for a few weeks now, for sure. They've been pretty upfront that the t-shirts that were part of it weren't up to the quality standards, so they had to get them remade, rerun, all those kind of things to send back out to us as a whole package. What are some of the new things you should pay attention to? I'm going to tell you in a sec. Don't forget about this. Concerts have already started and Chicago is coming up on May 22nd. Does that fit in the thing? At the Gates released The Ghost of a Future Dead April 24, 2026. As it's been explained, vocalist Tompa Lindberg recorded his vocals, all of his parts in one day and mostly in one take on the day before a major surgery to deal with his cancer. Before even his bandmates recorded anything. If you don't know, the At the Gates frontman died in September at the age of 52. Even if you're not a musician, you must know that the vocals and drums layer in last on most albums. Also notable, guitarist Anders Bjorkner rejoined to be a creative part of this album. This has been his first stint in the band since Slaughter of the Soul. This album is quite frankly probably the best thing since Slaughter of the Soul. Check out At the Gates, The Ghost of a Future Dead. Oh, fuck cancer. 6 Feet Under released the very 6 Feet Under titled Next to Die April 24th, 2026. A lot of jerk-offs hop on jacking up this band. I understand why in a way. They stayed the same with a diminishing song quality output. Classic rock lover Chris Barnes is a legend though. Just over a year ago, I saw this band open for Nile. The crowd was really into it, really into it. Barnes has moved on from smoking weed every night, but the crowd had not. The crowd wasn't not there to see Nile, but they were definitely there to see 6 Feet Under. His vocals struck me as strangely incredible live. I mean, not in a bad way, like seriously. The set that night though was old stuff, like 2005 and prior, because it was the Haunted's, their album Haunted, the 30th anniversary tour of that. So a lot of songs are played from that classic and their best album. If you're under 30 though, this new one, congrats, you have your first decent 6 Feet Under record. Easily their best in a while. I hate people who make the easy E jokes. A 6 Feet Under sound check is just Chris Barnes clearing his throat for 45 minutes. What is Chris Barnes' vocal warm-up? Falling down a stairs full... What is Chris Barnes' vocal warm-up? Falling down a stairs filled with chainsaws. Even the YouTube captions gave up on a 6 Feet Under live stream. Chris Barnes' vocals are proof that cigarettes can learn to scream. If you play a Chris Barnes vocal track backwards, it sounds like he is choking on drywall. If Cannibal Corpse did a reunion with Chris Barnes, the first casualty would be the Monitor mix. The album chooses to come out of the gate not at full speed. The first song actually comes across a little underwhelming because it's slower paced and methodical. That palm muted progression thing on Destroyed Remains is super cool on that song. Mutilated Corpse in the Woods has a nice feel to it. So does the song. The song Mutilated Corpse in the Woods, I think, plays best to his like mid-level growls that he does on this album. So it kind of just works best on this song and kind of hearing it. And obviously the lyrics and stuff are maybe unintentionally hilarious. Plus, when it slows down, the album slows down for almost that like chorus-like section. It just sounds more like old school 6 Feet Under to me than anything has in a while. The whole album sounds a little like we recorded this separately though. Now I know that's how you do it practically speaking, but this feels like really good musicians did all the parts separate, or one or two person wrote the music, or two people wrote the music or something, instead of like them working on the songs together. It's just something about how it's constructed is why I'm getting that vibe. And then like the individual parts and like Barnes' vocals are layered on top of it. Funny tidbit, the final song on the album, I thought it was titled 3 Wishes. It looks like Roman numerals 3, like the number 3 wishes, but it turns out it's Ill Wishes, ILL. Looking at the album, I was like, at first glance, I was like, that's a weird title for a 6 Feet Under song. The genie is out of the bottle on 6 Feet Under's Next to Die. Vomit Force spewed up a 3-song, 8-minute EP on April 24, 2026 titled In the Name of the Father. This band never reached the heights for me as its Northeastern Deprivation album in 2019, which was kind of constructed in 2 parts, it sounded like to me on that album. Or maybe it was like realizing a couple of EPs that were put together. I'm not quite sure. But with that said, I enjoyed this EP. I got like Killing of a Sacred Deer vibes. Big sound, it is compressed, it is dense. Their last album was in 2024, so I'm guessing that means we're not getting a 2026 album by the release of this little EP. This thing is worth some spins though. I think it carries a similar like theme throughout the EP, which is easy because it starts back up like before you even know it. Check, check, mic check, mic check, everybody sucks, but Pyrexia released System of the Animal 97, April 24th, 2026, and then also at some point in 97. This is supposed to be the original 1997 recording. Per the band, after 30 years in the archives, one of the first, if not the first album to take the intensity of death metal and mix it with the groove and breakdowns of New York hardcore. The original 1997 classic, System of the Animal, is in its debut format. So I mean, basically that's what we have here. This is a good album. So if you've never heard it, that's why I'm bringing it up. Right now, I'm gonna like pretend I'm gonna like one day sit down and listen to 97 and then 25 back to back sometime, just to like nerd out and kind of compare them and stuff. Let me know if you did that and like what the differences are and like what you liked best from the Pyrexia 97 versus the more recent like 25 that was dropped here last year, I guess. And speaking of New York death metal, check out our last video where we had an eagle fly down to us to deliver Reeking Aura's awesome new album, On the Promise of the Moon. Nequient released Avarice April 24, 2026, and it's got a lot in it. Think of this as like a death metal Every Time I Die, and there's a lot of different bands and band cocktails that you can put together to like say, hey, what does this group sound like? This is the album that probably deserves the most listens out of all the ones I'm mentioning here today, because it needs it. Not because it's overly techie or anything like that, but because like there's so many parts to it. The second track, for example, is bonkers, and then track 3 slows to a really sludgy cool crawl before ripping back into the heavy obtuse like directions the guitars go. I first got into this Chicago band from its 2022 Darker Than Death or Night album. Great tunes on that. The title of it's something like that. If you're already a fan, I want to give you a heads up. And I actually somebody tipped me off about this coming out. I didn't hear a lot in advance about this, but I'm not really plugged in all that well, to be honest with you. But if you're already a fan, I did want to point out that the vocals are a little different on this one. More Dillinger type vocals than death metal now. The higher vocals on the last album are now the lower ones, which again remind me of like Greg from, you know, DEP style, and I think you'll hear it right away. But that doesn't mean this thing's not vicious, because it definitely is. I've been meaning to actually visit their first album. They have one before the Darker Than Death at Night album, and I've been meaning to check that out too. Oh, and avarice is an insatiable, extreme desire to gain and hoard wealth or material possessions, often considered a despicable sin or capital vice. It represents an inordinate love for riches, focusing on accumulation rather than utility. Often associated with selfishness and materialism, it represents a never enough mentality. Oh, I know what they're going for. Check out Nequient Avarice. Jeremy had a little faux pas at a recent concert wearing the same pig shirt as another guy. You know, I didn't realize when I first got this photo, but Jeremy he's not a small guy, but the dude next to him is like fucking huge. Jabba shots! Jabba shots! Portrayal of Guilt released Beginning of the End, April 24th, 2026. Portrayal of Guilt is an American extreme music trio formed in Austin, Texas in 2021. Emerging from the city's hardcore and DIY underground, the band quickly became known for combining screamo intensity, black metal atmosphere, grindcore violence, industrial noise, and post-hardcore chaos into a sound that is difficult to categorize. Their music is abrasive, emotionally bleak, and relentlessly aggressive, but also highly dynamic and experimental. There's a nasty, scary, off-putting vibe to most of this Portrayal of Guilt music. It sounds harsher and more violent than it is due to the like surrounding vibes and atmosphere of their albums. POG, P-O-G, Portrayal of Guilt. You get it? Pog released a self-titled EP in 2017 that immediately drew attention in underground circles. Extensive touring followed, helping them build a reputation as a live act. Early comparisons could be made to bands like Converge, Full of Hell, The Body, though Portrayal of Guilt, I think, rapidly developed a voice of its own. Their 2018 debut album, Let Pain Be Your Guide, was widely praised for blending classic screamo emotionally with black metal textures and punishing what I'd say was like hardcore rhythms. 10 songs, 22 minutes, and the first song on the album is 4.5 minutes of the album. I don't want to tick anyone off, but I would call it like Full of Hell mixed with Bring Me the Horizon, but like old Horizon. But the vocals on this one are more like black metal screamy, but the high-pitched black metal style, not like so far like Cradle, but like the higher kind of vox. January 2021, Pog released We Are Always Alone, a harsher and more oppressive record that expanded into their sound into death metal, industrial, and I would say doom influences a lot too. Suffocating atmosphere and technical confidence abound on this. Later that year, in November, they issued another album, Christ, declaring the end of any possible commercial success. It is a particularly savage release that leaned into blasphemous images, noise rock ugliness, and I just say like grotesque theatricality to the thing. This is when they first hit my radar. This was the first Pog album I heard. In 2023, they released Devil Music, one of their boldest records, and most kind of a surprising thing here. Half of the album presented crushing metal versions of songs, while the second half rearranged the same material into chamber music style compositions featuring strings and brass. Now, this chamber music versions of the songs do maintain the harsh vocals over it, which I didn't expect going in, but the vocals have changes to them, so they're not exactly the same, like repeated vocals layered on like both parts. There's some little twists and changes on the vocals, but generally the same for the two halves of the albums, covering each song twice on it. Unique experience, and sincerely something to check out. The strings are almost just as heavy or scary as the distorted guitar versions at times. Song Burning Hand, the chamber version, has a better impact, in my opinion, on this song with the extreme lyrics on it. Beginning to end, this new album here is varied as well. So we don't have strings or orchestra or anything like that. We've got different songs from super aggressive to a bit more industrial, textures all over the place, little gothic things, and unexpected rhythmic influences, I'd say. Chamber of Misery Part 4 is on this. I gotta build a playlist sometime that's like Chamber of Misery 1, 2, 3, 4, and like line all the songs up and see if that's something that winds up sounding pretty cool. Portrayal of Guilt are often cited as one of the standout heavy underground bands of their generation. They appeal to fans of hardcore, black metal, screamo, and experimental extreme music because they refuse to stay in one lane. Portrayal of Guilt's records are confrontational, bleak, and artistically relentless, while their live shows are often widely praised for their intensity as well. Check out Portrayal of Guilt, Beginning of the End. That Corpus Awful and Undergang split is worth a listen if you miss it, just due to the like overwhelming amount of stuff that was released in April. I attended the Bill Murray concert May 1st at the Aragon Ballroom. Last time I was out there was to see Emperor. My guys think it's hilarious that I went to this. There was a opening band, one other opening band, but I missed it. I think they had masks on, because when I was walking in, I was like seeing them clean up, and they had like, I want to say orange ski masks on, so I'm not sure what that was. I just saw a little bit of glimpses as I like kind of came in and like threaded through the crowd and all that. A band called Home Team was the second opener. I'd call it a metal Backstreet Boys. It made me dislike Bill Murray a little for them even being there. Fake, weird, creepy. Grown men in the crowd jamming it. I kind of hoped it was like a gateway thing, but the crowd wasn't that young. They weren't like teenagers or anything. I talked to one guy that was really into it. I was like, hey man, have you heard Metallica? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, have you ever heard of Pantera? And he was like, yeah. I was like, have you ever heard of Black Sabbath? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, have you ever heard of Lamb of God? And I don't remember what he said, but I was like, I hope it's like when somebody doesn't, like, they haven't, they're like, hey, I only like light beer, fizzy little, like, you know, yellow light beer, but they've never really had like good beer in their life. So maybe once they have a little taste, they'll turn the corner on it. Why didn't we do this at the start, man? This one should come out red. This Portrayal of Guilt album is really good. I think it unironically made the first pit of the night though. The bass player did keep it going through equipment malfunction, something with his guitar strap. They kept needing to fix or help mount with the crew literally with duct tape out there, but pretty professional how he kept it going. Vocalist had high notes like really high periphery or protest the hero kind of thing, but only the highs, not like the growls or lower vocals or anything. Overly like simple rhythms to songs with like very few changes in them. There is a positivity to the music. I don't hate that. If he was singing live, he did a really good job, like in I'd say like an old school Journey kind of way. I felt a little awkward at my age, an experience for this, almost like something they'd play for like a middle school type of thing. We even got a motivational speech about reaching our dreams. The best part was when it ended and they gave out free water. So I just want to give, kudos to the Aragon for that. Clothes at this show, man. The shirts were all over the place, right? So we're there to see From Ohio proudly or not proudly, because he kept saying how much Bill Murray kept saying how much Ohio was a shithole. But folks were dressed in Ohio State gear. I saw a Sang with Caesarbog shirt. I saw 3 Taylor Swift shirts in autonomous groups or sections or at different points. People dressed in cowboy gear. One person in like, I don't know what else to call it other than like BDSM gear. Above average amount of camouflage than out in the world. I saw a Lorna Shore shirt. I was dressed, of course, in my Little Pony costume I always wear to concerts and things. Nobody fucking watches this, dude. And mostly, I'd say 25, 35-year-olds there. Above average amount of females compared to 0, rounding down in death metal shows. The crowd loved Linkin Park's One Step on the PA. Just all singing along to it before Bill Murray even hit the stage. I feel obligated to tell you why I was even there. I really like Bill Murray's 2024 album, American Motorsports. Straight up, without sarcasm. I call it a wonderful mix of pop punk and mom country. This stuff, seeing these things, hearing from people. There was a group of people who were like talking about, that I respect, they were talking about like the most favorite album they heard in 2024, and it was of a metal kind of show and things are being said, right, that you would expect. And then one guy goes, Bill Murray, and they didn't get into it really. They didn't talk about what it was at all, I think. Maybe they did prior or something. I went and looked at it. I was like, that's weird. Like, of all this stuff, at least I've heard of the other stuff. Even if I don't agree with it being the best one, I heard of it, right? And I was like, what even is this? So I went and looked it up and I listened to it, and it's super sweet bubblegum. It's just a reoccurring, every song is a piece of fruit striped zebra gum. And every time you have another song, after 3 minutes, you get another piece, you know? I just jammed that so much and liked it, and I just, you know, I just wanted to hear those songs live. Is really why I was there. Now, on stage, Bill Murray always had an accompanying female vocalist. Why am I bringing this up right out of the gate? She was a big part of the show, always singing along with him. She also mostly played saxophone, but also rocked a flute 3 times. I think it was 3 times. Seriously, that night we also had tambourine, banjo, slide guitar. There was another musician that was part of it as well, right? So you have Bill Murray, he played guitar, sometimes not, a guitarist, bass player, the drummer rocking. Then we had the female I mentioned, the saxophone player, and other vocalists. Then another member who was changing the instruments and stuff around depending on the songs. The song Fluoride in the Hard Seltzer Water had the flute live, that I never really noticed on the album or song or anything. Evidently, there's even a cranking your hog hand symbol that the signal that people would do in like at the concert and stuff. This was a sold out show as announced by Bill Murray. If you've been following the news, the guitarist might want to change his look. He looks creepy, or I'm just kind of projecting now onto a look that he already had. A lot of songs played that night. Now I know they're only 3-minute long songs, so I kind of get that. What do I recall? I recall Twice, Empty Handed, The End, Ohio, Shitfest. 80/20 is a cool live song. Better Hell, All Gas. Just, you know, the best songs off the last 2 albums, I would say. And then, you know, I never really liked those old albums so much, but I like them better now hearing it live. It's like cheesy pop punk dance music is how it kind of sounded live. I give them credit for not cheaping out or being lazy and having the crowd sing a bunch. I was actually talking to Betty. I was like, man, I haven't been to a concert where like there's gonna be, I feel like probably a ton of people singing along to the music in a long time. But he didn't get lazy like that. He did not have the crowd sing a lot. He had a duet with the Home Teen singer for, I think it was the song Where to Find Me. That is a song that is a duet on the album with another man, I think. But I don't have the new album memorized, you know, front to back quite yet. Oh, I saved some of the confetti from the show. Bill Murray was a fun time, more hokey than I thought. I'm just, you know, used to like more serious like death metal, black metal bands. And speaking of which, I attended the Godless Tour April 25th at the Vic Theater in Chicago. Behemoth, Deicide, Rotting Christ, and Immolation. Immolation are a band that have a very high floor, but sometimes on the albums, the ceiling never really reaches that much higher than the floor, is how I'd kind of describe their stuff. Now this can be a good thing. You're never going to have something that comes across too different. And you don't have big outreaches of experimentation, but I will say they've done a lot of crazy stuff within their own self-imposed box. They are one of the OG death metal groups of all time. The guitarist was awesome live. Crazy movements, like intentional on those chords. Ross, the vocalist, rocked it. It's riffy, complex music, right? Nothing like it, but the crowd was into it that night. A lot of movement in the pit. They played the song Swarm of Terror, and I've always loved the Middle Eastern tones on Swarm of Terror. Did I say that right the first time? That 2005 Immolation album is probably the album I'm most familiar with, other than Close to a World Below. Just something about that album has such a flow to it. It's varied with what I'll describe as like that immolation flow. Now, I'm not 100% Mr. Immolation, so don't let me fool you. The crowd liked the new songs off of Descent, the new album, which I think more than half of the set was from, including the closer, Bend Towards the Dark. Now that was a cool live song. The new album Descent just released April 10th, and it is excellent. That album gained a lot of praise, and I think deservedly so. Some claiming it's the third best in their discography. There's no way I can make that call yet. But if you're new to Immolation, great news. There are at least 11 more albums for you to listen to. This new one has that flow, or like that X factor to the songs that exceeds just the track's actual music in a way. I hope that makes sense. When Immolation has that flow or vibe, the albums with it just hit so much better. It's weird to see your old bands get old. Sometimes you're up close and you forget, like looking at them, you're like, man, a lot of time's passed by, right? Immolation rocked in an upbeat manner their blasphemous songs. Ross took time to thank each band in the crowd multiple times. Long live Immolation. Did I show you a picture of that hole dweller patch on the back of that guy that night? I was uncomfortable being behind him. I posered up to the balcony for Rotting Christ. It was kind of easy to do, and I guess I've never actually done that before. I had to get up early that day, and then I forgot I was going to a concert that I'd been constantly thinking about every day that week leading up to it. And I went for a run, but it was because it was going to be a slow-moving day, I thought. But no, it did not turn out to be a chill day. It ended up being a really active day. So the rest of that point was super cool, and I got a beer then, too. My first experience with Rotting Christ was in 1999. I kept hearing about the album Dead Poem for a few years. This is evidently all this is. It's not like a insert or anything like that in there on Dead Poem. I didn't, got in 99, I got Sleep of the Angels. Back. I remember jamming Dead Poem a few times and digging parts of that and finding it matching up more with like Melodeath kind of stuff. At the time, like In Flames. I don't think I cared for this album, Sleep of the Angels album, and then I just shit the bed on RC for 20 years, I guess. I've noticed what feels like a bigger presence in them in the last 10 years or so. I've never seen them live prior before this. I can't really comment on the set list or anything, as I didn't actually recognize any of those songs, you know, specifically from my memory, which would be expected because I haven't heard almost all of them. I didn't know they went on to become like anthemic black metal is basically what it sounded like stadium black metal. I get it, you know, I finally get it. It's cool. I think it's a little different than that little section that I caught them in, you know, back in the 90s and listened to them, but they definitely become something here, and it seemed like a lot of people really enjoyed it. I listened to so much Deicide headed into this show. I spent a lot of time with Legion and the first 4 classic albums. Hard to believe anyone goes on after Glenn and his crew live, dressed all in black, no logos, no bullshit. They had the Legion symbol on the kick drums, although they had only one song from the Legion album, I think. Oh, Legion's a total poser detector. Do you like Legion? No? Off with head. These songs crushed so hard live. Glenn hardly said anything, they just ripped through the songs. When Satan ruled his world, Bastard of Christ, Behead the Prophet, Once Upon the Cross, Sacrificial Suicide, Serpent of the Light, I'm Detecting a Theme, Forever Hate You, Children of the Underworld, Dead by Dawn, Homage for Satan ended the set. One other song that night, but it sounded like I needed to study whatever album that was from. Short set, I thought. Steve came out and said hi at the end. I appreciate this long-running, serious death metal band. Deicide is a band a friend told me about recently. I purchased a copy of Legion, the band's second album. I sat on the couch, popped in my earbuds, and I got 29 minutes of a lawnmower fighting a chainsaw in an abandoned church with the windows broken out. This album doesn't start as much as it materializes behind you with these like sheep and barnyard noises like old McDonald's had a farm, and I'm like, E-I-E-I, no. Then it whispers Satan and pushes you down a flight of stairs faster than the speed of blast beats. This album came out in 1992, and evidently before the band learned to play music, the vocals sound like someone breathily gargling battery acid. The vocals are what I imagine a demon sounds like when it stubs its toe on a Lego. I didn't catch a single word, but I am 90% sure the vocalist is yelling at me personally. I don't know what I did, but I am sorry, sir. The vocals sound like he didn't know what he wanted to do, so he recorded like 4 different versions and just played them all at the same time. Also, I get the impression he's not into JC. The guitars are so fast, I almost called in a tornado watch. Every song begins at 100 miles per hour and somehow accelerates into another dimension from there. Sometimes it's just randomly fast. I think like everyone's trying to keep up with the drummer and suddenly it just speeds up at times. The riffs sound like someone fed a colony of hornets a Monster Energy drink and taught them trigonometry. The bass is allegedly present. By track 2, I was convinced my speakers were possessed. By track 3, I was convinced I was possessed. Track 4, I was Googling, can a snare drum file a noise complaint against itself? I think the drummer got intimidated by the rest of the music. He's not very creative, he just pounds the drum like super fast the whole time. The band can never keep a beat going. Take for example the song Trifixion. You think it sounds like relatively simple versus the other songs on the album, but this band could not carry a 4/4 time to save its life. I sneezed during Trifixion and I'm pretty sure a nun got slaughtered. It does feel all over the place at times, like the musicians weren't very good and they couldn't hold like the beat steady or section or anything, you know? Trifixion sounds like an upside down cross that would get burnt into your head, and like, why the hell would anyone do that? Production quality is excellent if you ever wanted to hear what the inside of a volcano sounds like. The mix is so sharp it could cut glass, produced by Scott Burns, who really should have burned the tapes here. What's up with the cover art? It looks like a failed attempt to assemble IKEA furniture with only satanic instructions. It looks like the medieval Wi-Fi symbol for no connection. It looks like the loading icon for Hell's customer service hotline. The cover art looks like a logo for a church where everyone owns a motorcycle. Later, I played this in my car and my GPS refused to speak to me for 3 days. Every song's the same here on this thing. There's like no power ballads or anything on this. If you're looking for melody, warmth, or any sign of human empathy, this album will disappoint you. I'd recommend this only if you need to summon demons, mow the lawn aggressively, or scare off unwanted solicitors. 0 stars. Hard to believe The Satanist was 12 years ago. As I understand it, if you're a millennial, this is the greatest album ever for you. I'm not gonna like piss on that or anything like that, but by the time The Satanist had come out, I'd pretty much heard like everything from by Behemoth except for maybe one or two of its like early black metal albums. I remember this being a letdown when the album first came out. It's not that it was bad, and I do enjoy it today. Please don't misunderstand. I just thought like Evangelion was so awesome, and I didn't want that era to end. That stretch of albums from '04, Demigod to the Apostrophe to 2009's Evangelion is incredible. Layering of the vocals only done better by Deicide, right? Probably. Nurgle could write a guitar riff in his sleep, and they were awesome. Inferno's flashy drumming was so much fun during that era, I thought. The change in the direction was just a surprise for me. All albums after The Satanist, though, saw a drop-off in quality, in my opinion, especially full album style quality. I think this is my third time seeing Behemoth. I recall the first time it was the first North American tour following Nurgle's cancer diagnosis and clean bill of health. 2012, I believe that was. Last time I saw them was in 2018 with At the Gates. Wolves in the Throne Room opened, but I didn't make it in time to see them. 2018 was the first and only time I ever saw At the Gates, and that was basically why I went that night. Is the date on the shirt? Oh, great, yeah. Yeah, this is from the concert. The change in concerts from 2012 to 2018 was significant to me. They moved from a band that rocked death metal to like a full-blown syncopated moves to fire shooting around kind of band. They became very theatric. The Satanist album increased this band's popularity by quite a bit, I think. That night at the concert, the old stuff was from The Satanists. I heard Shadow Elite. I heard Shit of God from the new one that I can recall. I'll always recognize those opening notes to Conquer All. They played that night. There were a few songs I didn't recognize, as presumably they're from the newer albums. And but I will say they came across very heavy live. Blow Your Trumpets, Gabriel was played. The Return of Darkness and Evil song was covered and sounded really good. I thought that was very well done. Of Fire and Void is still a cool song and will forever be. They got moves to that song now too, by the way. Chant for East Cacton and O Father, O Son, Satan still closer up. Nurgle didn't say much, but he did bring up playing in the Chicagoland area for the first time in Aurora. I was not there, but my guess is he was referring to Riley's Rock House, probably. In the early 2000s, death metal and extreme metal wasn't huge, especially live. Riley's Rock House in Aurora used to be a bar that had a stage area, and metal acts would go through there. I don't exactly recall the first time I went there, but if I think about like who I went with, I think it was like 99 to 2000 would have been the first time. I did not live in the Chicagoland area until like the middle of 1999. The first time I saw Fetus was at Riley's Rock House, Vader, Shadows Fall. If you were ever at Riley's Rock House in Aurora, will you let me know? Like I'm genuinely curious. attended the Uda Ceremonial Castings Rome and Wrath Night tour April 19th at Reggie's. Any black metal show brings out a few oddballs, and this bill with vocalist Dungeon Synth, whatever Mortius is any given album, and the black metal of Uda gave me the impression, no, the hope of seeing some real weirdos. I think metal will always be inclusive because some of this stuff is so odd, it brings in different people and none of them can be easily categorized. Wraith Night was my first Dungeon Synth experience live. I checked with folks in the crowd that was Dungeon Synth. You know, I envisioned Dungeon Synth fans as being like real basement dweller losers, but the folks that came out and talked about the genre and Mortius were like really warm and encouraging about it. That was nice, and if I like this kind of music at all, I think there were like pockets of camaraderie here that I would have never expected. Folks who were here to see Rome were here to see Rome. Folks proudly mentioned it. Rome's all-acoustic set was like country music for medieval times. It was just him and an acoustic guitar telling stories with chords and deep vocals. Kind of like if Johnny Cash sang on Game of Thrones. Heartfelt. Takes some talent to stand there and do that. I got bored though about song 4. I noticed the song shifted to like more like bar chord heavy arrangements, which didn't sound as intricate to me or interesting, but brought more energy to the performance. The bar next door's nightclub had like bass music pounding, which was kind of a funny juxtaposition to the pauses in the acoustic set. Neofolk, just not my thing, but after Rome's set, I met the world's second tallest metalhead. For reference in this photo, I am 6'2". Mortius had a special Smell of Rain set that night. Since 2001, I've pressed play on that album probably 20 times over the last 25 years and never finished it. I've seen him around like metal forever, and I just never got into it, and quite frankly I never tried that hard. Seeing him live at this show brought more of a realization that Mortius, and I assume the goblin guy's name is Mortis, right, is a performer and not just a character. The performance felt stadium or larger room ready. Classic musician moves, moving around the mic in like big stadium rocker kind of movements. And after all this time, that guy can't be that young. So while Mortius was originally the bass player in Emperor, which is interesting, I didn't think they had a bass player. Wait, maybe that's why. Tall Guy said it would be different live, and another person said it matched, and another said there was more guitar than what was on the album. It's electronic rock. I think if this album came out in the 90s, it might have been a bigger deal. My earbuds blocked out a lot of the noisy, fuzzy guitars, so I bet they were like in a pretty high range or something. I didn't have a lot of strong feelings about Mortius going into this. Feels like he should have been bigger, like in a White Zombie Manson kind of way. He performed like he was ready for it though. Uda is Latin for haunted. Uda performed in their signature hood coverings. This was a throwback concert. Uda performed its first album, 2016's Devoid of Light. Also, it was a reunion of ceremonial castings. Now, if any of this is wrong, it is due to hearsay. I spoke with the merch guy and the fans in the crowd, plus did some Googling. Ceremonial Castings was an earlier Pacific Northwest symphonic black metal band formed in the 1990s by the Superchee brothers, Jake and Nick. Later, Uda was formed in 2014 by Jake Superchi. Sources note Uda emerged after Ceremonial Castings went on hiatus. Jake Superchi, guitarist vocalist in Ceremonial Castings, founder member of Uda, Nick Superchi, Ceremonial Castings member associated with side project Wraith Night. So I was not actually aware of Ceremonial Castings, and sorry to West Coast folks. I can see why you would be put off by that, but in the Midwest in the 90s, this didn't travel out here to me, but it is awesome. Definitely a more symphonic black metal band. It used all kinds of dynamics, death metal growls, piano keyboards in the music, like full stop piano kind of stuff. Keys up front much more, and stood out because the rest of the instruments drop out in the albums. I enjoyed listening to this band's catalog leading up to the concert. There's a lot in this Ceremonial Casting music. Hell, there's a lot in each individual song, more like they're black metal conductors. Uda did not offer any banter, sticking mostly to the songs, starting with Devoid of Light and then doing Ceremonial Casting songs. The other brother came in to sit on the keyboard for that, and then ending with an Emperor song. I have never seen this band live. I've been following them since 2018's Cult of a Dying Sun. I enjoyed the last album of theirs the best, Crepuscule Natura. I jammed that a lot in 2023. The new acoustic album isn't my thing, and the Something's in the Way Nirvana cover does not work for me, and none of that was touched here at this show. But I would have been happy to have seen witnessed a Crepuscule Natura set as well, their last album. The last song on that album, the over 10-minute long song, Through the Wax and Through the Wane, is one of my most played songs in 2023. I love how that song evolves the riff throughout the song. Just like a lot of their music, it's understated. Ceremonial Castings, understated. I'm confident saying that's my favorite song and my favorite album from them, the last one. I know a lot of folks like the prior one, Jin, but that latest album just really hit for me. That's it! The Metal Boy!